All right. Well, we got Hendrik in the house. I should be live-ish. Need to know if you can hear me and if you can see me. Um, should be live now. It's always the wait, right? When you find out if people can see you or not. All right. Let me know if you can see and hear me. All right, good. Welcome, Hendrik. Obviously, we will sit around for a little bit and wait for people to show up. That's how you always start a live stream, right? You gotta let the other people show up. I do see we already have people chilling, so that's awesome. How you guys doing? I'm excited to talk to you guys here. I don't know how many. I don't recognize many names here, so I'm not sure. Are you guys going to want me to go over the new features, or do you want me to just point you to the link with the summary of the new features, and then we can go on into other stuff instead? I'll put the link in the chat either way, if I can get it to load. Apparently that website does not want to load. Well, it'll load eventually. All right. Summary is fine. Okay. I will talk about a few of them, but actually there's definitely some features that there's definitely some things that people have asked me about repeatedly and seem to be confused about repeatedly that I will talk about today, and then I'll take questions and I'll do some challenge images. Here, let me copy this link in. So this link is a summary of the last video where I talked about all the new changes to the UI. One thing I didn't discuss is that, and let me switch over, talked about switching from docks to toolbars and things, but one thing I didn't talk about is that all the docks are fully movable. I mean, if you want it in the middle of the screen, you can put it there. If you want it in another dock, you can put it there. As long as it's not the first dock, and you don't, it's a little bit of a weird thing. You have to stay in the dock for it not to move. But you can also, if you wanted to, you could put it on the side if you decide. There's no specific location where you have to put it. The only thing you can't do is it won't dock like inside. It won't dock above these. It'll dock right there, but it won't dock in between these. It would dock to the left of it. That's the only limitation, but you can put these wherever you want on the screen. So that was, I showed the toolbars as opposed to the docks. Everything except for the filament library and a little bit of model geometry is now in a toolbar, which takes a whole lot less room, is much more usable for most users, especially if you go down to 1366 by 768, which I'll show you here. You can actually still see your image. You don't have a lot here, so generally speaking, people would want to combine this into a tab and switch between them so you have some room. But other than that, you can get all your docks located so you can still see everything. And your toolbars. The default layout when you pop up now, the new version, when this comes out, which is I think a week and a half away. I'm just really bug fixing now, no new features, nothing. When you get to this, it will ignore all your old layout because obviously so much stuff has changed, and show up as a 1366 by 768 window. And then you can adjust your font sizes, increase or decrease font sizes and things like that, and move all your docks around for your own personal layout. Not docks, well, the two docks that exist, toolbars. Sliders aren't here. This is something that everyone notices, of course, but the sliders aren't here, but they do exist still. I didn't get rid of them, but I think that by default, you don't need the sliders anymore. All those controls are here in the middle. I have fixed, I don't think I talked about this last week, I have fixed where this gap here, you're going to still have a little gap here, but it's going to be much smaller. It's going to be a much more consistent gap at the top. Rather than sometimes you get it where like half the screen would be showing, it would be down here and that everything would be all compressed. So this should help make it easier to work on smaller screens. Though I will say, and I believe I've turned off scaling, so scaling won't work. Your Windows icon scaling won't work, but then you can adjust the font size in HueForge, so that'll account for it. If this font size is too small for you, which it is for many people, then you just go here and increase your font size. And it increases almost across the board. There's a few things that don't increase, but just about everything increases. There are definitely some resizing issues as a result of changing font sizes. I'm trying to deal with that. That is actually going to be one of the that's going to be one of the main goals of the beta period. It's going to be a short beta period for this. I'm hoping 2 weeks, and at the outside, 2 to 4 weeks at the outside. For how much has changed, I think that's a pretty short beta period, but a lot of it's UI. So what I want to do is see, do all the dialogue buttons show up and you can read all the text. Do all the one thing I found out is when you're in ColorPop and the tolerance slider doesn't show the number correctly. If I go to ColorPop, which I was playing with earlier, the tolerance, well, now it's working, but if you've got this compressed all the way, there you go. So the tolerance number gets run off the end. So that's something that it just needs to be addressed. Okay. Any questions before I get started? Still kind of walking people in, waiting for people to show. But any questions before we get started? Got about 23 people here, so that's pretty good. Man, my camera likes to track me. Sorry. We're going to switch over to the HueForge window pretty much entirely for most of this, and you won't have to see my mug in the corner. I have a couple of challenge images people sent me. I will, if you send me a challenge image to steve@thehueforge.com, I will. I just got one more, I see. I will take a look at that. Okay. And again, yes, and for anything you submit for office hours, by default, I assume that you don't want it used in any other way. That it's your image, and I'm using it for office hours, and then I delete it, and I never pass out the projects or anything, unless you specifically want something. Though I don't even save them normally during this time period. Though I will save them if someone says they want me to save a project and pass it on to them. But it's your IP, however you got it, however you gave it to me. I have no ownership of it. I'm not going to use it any other time. So that is how office hours images work. I had someone ask for the projects last week, and I said they're not mine to give. So okay, let me switch over. Now I actually started with a difficult image. This is a very difficult image, and there's a couple reasons for that, and they can be mitigated a couple of different ways. The major reasons for this being super difficult is that this background is such a close color match to everything else here, but it's not a single color background. The background has multiple colors in it. Forget the little specks. I mean that it's just not, it looks kind of like it's a single shade, but it's not a single shade. These are multiple different colors. And then also her hair and her face are going to be similar colors to her armor, but not exactly the same. It's going to be and then also the big thing is that we are going to need a red underneath her face colors to get the skin tones. But then that's going to make the red, it's a difficult image to get totally right. So, and there's some issue. Okay, the other issue is that to get the armor to look coherent, this shading needs to be all together, and like the shading down here needs to be all together with the rest of the colors of the armor. We need to stack on that gray to get the armor coloring. But because the armor coloring is this skin tony color, that becomes really difficult. So this is one of those cases where if you generated this, which I did, you might try to get the generation to give you a different color of armor, and then you can come back and give it that kind of tan shade if you want to later. So you might say, oh, I want blue armor, and I want the blue armor only basically so that I don't have these conflicting matches. Or you might come in with an image editor afterwards and change some things. And actually, I was going to show that real briefly. I do have this loaded up in Affinity, and Affinity has the new AI smart selecting tool, which isn't perfect, but like I can select her at least, and then it takes a moment. And you can actually previously you couldn't do this, but you can hold down Control and group the selection. So now I have more of it selected. Now I have this little bit here selected that I don't really want. And this does work cooperatively with the other tools. So if I bring the standard smart selector tool there, shrink that a little bit and grab this corner. I could grab all these shadows if I wanted, though I don't think they're super important. But let's say I wanted to grab most of this. I can get that pretty quickly. And then I could invert it, which is, I believe, Control-Shift-I, but we'll go to Select and invert pixel selection. And then here we could say, okay, we want to make the background a different color. And we could just recolor this, or we could delete the background and make it a little bit easier on ourselves. I was not super careful, so that there's this bits back here that are still going to be kind of problematic. I might try to grab them a little bit more, except that I'm losing some hair, and try to get a little bit more of this selected so that it doesn't get brought in. I'd just like to delete that. And then now I have her kind of separated from the background, which should make this quite a bit easier. So I could save this. Should have saved actually. Then in HueForge, yeah, it's going to ask me, do you want to auto reload image updates? And I have improved this, though there is still a bug I found when I'm doing this testing. I did find a bug, so I'm going to say auto reload all image updates, and I've been finding that it hasn't been updating it the first time. I did a couple of images, yeah, so that's another thing. There's a few bugs around here, but it didn't actually reload the image is the problem here. So if I do a Control-Alt-I, it'll reload the image properly. So now we have her cut out from the background. It's not a great cutout, but she's cut out from the background. That will make her easier because the background's not going to be that off-white color. But I mean, it's not a great cutout. So you may be better off leaving the background and changing its color, or I may need to change her hair color, for instance. So whenever I'm looking at these, I'm trying to look for what I call color continuums, ways to blend smoothly from one color to the next, and so forth. So if you look at her on the color match side, it kind of is obvious that you can go from black to gray. We could maybe bring our white down here to give ourselves a little bit more of that gray. And then from that gray, we could blend this beige on top of it. We probably need the white back on top as well. We should have duplicated that instead of removed it. Yeah, see, so now I have this kind of grayish color, and we can sort of set how bright or dark that color is based on how much of this white we put in here. So maybe we actually don't want any white down there. And that gives us a pretty good set of her armor, and everything but her face and hair and cloak. So I think the best thing to do here is to try to find ourselves like a dark brown that's distinct from black. This is the tricky part. We need a color that's distinct from black. It isn't black. We are gonna need a white down here to blend onto the armor. And then we'll find this dark brown, and now we can grab a red and put it on top. We could grab the actual red, so like this is kind of a muted red. We can put that in here to get a little bit better match. And then we can get this lighter red and make that a better match as well. So now we have the cloak mostly matching, but we have this brown here that we haven't matched yet, so we'll bring some of those in. And then we need to match her skin, which normally I'd put a yellow here to get some skin tone. Yeah, see, and it does match. It does end up grabbing the match when I put yellow in there. But you see her hair. So her hair is a lot of the biggest problem here. The hair is too close of a match to other parts of her. This is showing down there. Like those are all down in this section, which matches with the armor. You can see the flashes where it's matching. It's matching with the armor. And if we want the armor to be all nice and coherent, it kind of has to match with the armor. So this is where this is a really difficult image to work on as a result. So I'm not saying that to say we can't do this image. I'm just saying that this is actually a tricky image. Not every image is a great candidate for HueForge. And if you go into color analysis, which most people are view analysis, you can see that all of our colors are in this one section of the HSL color space. This is the HSL color space. It can make a whole star. Well, this is our grayscale, which I've defined with this slider. How much is grayscale, how much is not. But here you can see like it's a lot of desaturated color and then a little bit of red and orange all together. But they are part of multiple layers of the image. So I just wanted to show an image that was going to always be very difficult to do in HueForge. Now, we can make this a little bit better by inverting this section here. If we invert this section, then the blacks synchronize into the middle. We now have the blacks synchronized in the middle. This looks a whole lot better. We still have some speckles around the face and things that we might be able to tweak, but this is a much, much better result for this image. And I bet you if the background was not in there, it would be all layers all over the place. But if you had colors, the thing that requires here is that you have this beigey color that's a 3 TD, and you have at least, this is only a 2.5 TD, so I have a 3 TD chromal shadow gray. We should drop that in there. And then we can adjust this a little bit and get, so this is really close actually. This is much closer than I got during my original attempt. So then it's a matter of, can we get that white on the face to match only on the face and not somewhere else? And generally speaking, we're going to need to grab that color and put it on the core. And when we do that, it gets nasty. So here, see, now the armor is matching up here when we really don't want it to match up here. Can we turn that off? I don't even know if we need this white up here. Yeah, so that's kind of the issue we're running into here, is that this armor color is now going to conflict with the facial color. And we can get that a little bit better, but it's going to be real tricky to get it all the way and not have constant conflicts with things. So this is a case where this little bit of issue there, maybe we remove that with a moderate spike removal instead. But we could come in here and say, well, let's edit the hair, and that might be easier to do, and or maybe the face. We can grab the hair either with the regular selection tool, or potentially with the smart selection tool if you're not very good with this tool at all, or you just want to grab the hair. It's pretty good at getting things like that. We could also grab the face potentially here and say let's redshift the face a little bit, but let's we take the hair and then we can recolor it. We can just say we want to recolor it, and yeah, go towards like a reddish orange maybe, and say and bring the lightness down so it's like a dark. I mean, it kind of looks nice anyway, and then we can save that. And now once I've selected auto, it did auto update my image since it's already been selected. But now the hair is no longer conflicting, and now we have good solid hair here. The coverage on the hair is good. So that's actually a pretty good version. This is an issue I got to deal with. When it auto reloads the image, it always resizes it back to 200. That's because of my settings. I have this in preferences, load image with default size. But when I'm reloading an image that I've already had, it shouldn't take over the default size like that. So now it would be a matter of coloring it on the other side. So let's get rid of any duplicate layers we don't need. Those were duplicate layers because they were equal signs. So this is something that a lot of people don't know. that those equal signs indicate that these colors are effectively the same. They may not be exactly the same. There are a few cases where you might get an equal and a non-equal and an equal and a non-equal. But for the most part, especially when you're blending up to a color, it's going to mean that that is the same color. It's the same color to within a small tolerance. There can be floating point and rounding errors that make that not work. But when you have this on the mesh core, it's wasted layers. The only case where it might not be wasted layers is here, where you want to make sure your black is truly black. And so you bring that black in and you disable a layer of black. But these here are a waste. They're not going to change anything, and they're not what we want. Okay, good question. Ryan Smith asked, for photo editing outside of HueForge, what software would you recommend? I really like Affinity. The Affinity suite is one-time purchase per major version. So we're at version 2.6 or 2.5 something. And for all version 2s, you buy it once and you won't have to pay again. They also offer you 6 months free trial for the whole suite with no credit card required. So it's literally a free trial, and when the trial ends, if you either buy it or you don't, and there's no oh, I just commanded my camera to do something. You do get detention. You're late for class, to go straight to detention. You'll have to catch up in class later afterwards. So anyway, I really recommend Affinity. They did get bought by the people who make Canva, but so far they have not fallen to the subscription model. They're still holding to the one-time purchase model. And you can get the whole suite, or you can buy individual pieces. And if you get the whole suite, you get the iPad versions too, if you want. You get it for Mac, Windows, and iPad. You can. It's like HueForge. It's a household license, more or less. You can install it on all of your devices. It's really good. And they have actually way better documentation than HueForge. They are very good at teaching you, this is how you use it and this is how you do things. If you're like it's very confusing, right? It's like any image editing software. It's pretty confusing. But if you actually say, how do I do this? They have a video for it, and it'll help you get it going. And Affinity does have Shaun of the Dead. He's been using Inkscape. Affinity looks like it might be a better option. They do have Affinity Designer, which is their vector tool for design. I've used Inkscape for like tracing images into vectors and things like that. I know that people who use Designer like it, but I don't know how it compares to all the features of Inkscape. Fortunately, Inkscape is free. So if you only want to use it for a couple of things that Designer doesn't do, then you're great. So they have Publisher, Designer, and Photo all on version 2, and I really like them. I don't get any, there's no affiliate or anything. I get no money from them. I just think they're a good product, and that's what I was using was Affinity. This is Affinity. They just added the AI selection tool, in case you're wondering. Okay. So anyway, I wanted to show that even with color match, there are some images. I do have some ideas on how to address this. There are some images that don't work very well. I had some ideas on how to address this. I have not addressed them yet. But there are some ways that potentially to address this issue. So let's go ahead and set the color core on this. Now, the color core can be, you can copy everything over here, but obviously, I don't know how much you know. These roughly hexagonal shaped filament sliders are image colors, so they're not real filaments. We don't have a filament of that color. So let's go find a filament to replace it with. We'll find one that could play. The Bamboo Lab Basic Beige looks like maybe a good option. And then we can put that up here as well. And then I grabbed the correct gray, and then we probably want a brown of some sort. We actually probably do want that brown. I always try to find a reduced number of filaments if I can help it. But let's go here. I do have a bunch of these browns. Oh, I just got the cocoa brown, so let's grab that. And then I don't think we even need this one. We'll bring in a red that is a relatively high TD, like a 4 TD red. Yeah, that's going to blend nicely with the brown. The only issue is that we may actually want to bring our black up or put our gray on top here for a minute to get a little bit more kind of grayscale here, or even just put our white here to get a little bit more grayscale into that section because this is the chainmail kind of part of the image. And then this color, I think I have the Caribbean coral is gonna be pretty close. Yeah. Now there are some of these tans and things like that that I'm kind of just real. I just kind of understand that they're going to be difficult. I can bring them in here, but they're going to be difficult to get quite right. Like this brown is not quite in here. I can try putting these, but the problem is I'm putting them around where the face is. And so it gets tricky to figure out. I could try putting skin in here, I think is probably going to be the closest. And see what that looks like. Doesn't really change much, according to the prediction at least. I could try their orange instead. Yeah, see, I don't really think that necessarily buys us much, so I'm going to take those out. Potentially, we could put those down here. If we move one of these, I can zero this one with Z, by the way. It moves it down to 0, so it goes away. We could potentially move this down here, and then do the same thing with the skin down here, or the orange down here, and that might give us a little bit more of our brown. But it could mess with our skin tone as well, so kind of it's trade-offs. 3D Max Tan will look great on the armor. Okay, let's pull. Okay, I have actually. I have the tan here, 2.6. Could put that here. Yeah, it does look good. So, one of the things that has been added, I'll mention it briefly, is in filaments, you can now, in types, you can say I want to merge my PLA plus and merge my PLAs basically, so they're all on one filament tab. And you can also filter out your tabs you don't want. So anyway, the plan wasn't here was not to get the perfect image, but it was to show kind of where there are still limitations and issues, and I do have some ideas to address these. They are not implemented yet, so they won't be in this version. Okay, but let's talk about disabled layers. This is actually let's ask me. I'm going to explain disabled layers, and then I want you, while I'm explaining it, to write down some questions on disabled layers because lots of people don't understand them, and I want you to understand disabled layers. So you can only disable a layer in the mesh core. So it only makes sense. Disabled layers only applies in color match. And what is a disabled layer? A disabled layer basically says for color match, you cannot match to this layer. This layer is not an option for matching. Well, why would I do that? Well, in the case where maybe you have two similar colors and you want only one of them to match, you have like a black in a couple places and you only want to match one of them, for instance. So here it's matching this tan, right, that you really want as part of the armor. Now I could try moving this down to make it part of the armor. And that might work. That actually might work pretty well, potentially. Or I could bring it back up here where it was, and I could just say, well, I only need one layer of it, so let's just disable the lower layer. And you see that when I disabled that layer, sorry, when I disable this layer, which is D, or right-click Enable Disable, and you can do it over the image as well, the image changed. You see that this section here, right here, right, when I disable this layer, it's no longer there. It now goes back to the gray, which is kind of more where we want it to be, because that's a closer match. Interesting. Okay. Coach someone else through. Suggestion was for future office hours, I might coach someone else through doing their own HueForge. I could certainly attempt that in the future. I would need to probably have a conversation with them ahead of time, though. So that just basically says this color can no longer match there, and I could disable this layer too. Of course, then all the benefit of adding that color goes away. So that's probably not what you want to do. But basically, it'll just make it pick a different layer. So what does disable layer do exactly? Disable layer makes that layer no longer eligible to be a top layer. The color is still there. It's still being printed. It's still being blended, but it can no longer be a top layer. There's no option for it to become a layer that shows in a print. That's effectively what disable layer does. It removes the option for that layer to be shown. Um, and that is actually a surprisingly powerful tool. This is interesting. Yeah. Yeah, so I will still do office hours twice a month on Discord. So I'm planning on doing twice monthly on YouTube and twice monthly on Discord. So that would be an option for sure, to do it on the Discord. So anyway, all right, this was just an image to show how there are still some images that are problematic in HueForge, and that that's probably not going to go away anytime soon. But that I have some potential fixes for those in the future, and things you can do like recoloring can really help. Um, so I will like I help people through HueForges on the Discord if they pop in and want help from time to time if I'm available as well. But yeah, doing that specifically on a Discord call would be a good idea. Okay, so disabled layers. Does anyone understand them better? Still don't understand them? I want to know if my explanation of disabled layers is enough for you now to kind of go forward and disable layers for yourself. Or are you still confused? Still confused is an okay answer. Um, the other reason to disable layers, I forgot that. The other reason to disable layers is to just force enough layers of a color. Like if you wanted a silhouette in black, right? You wanted the black at the top and you wanted it to be like a silhouette. The black is all going to match this bottom layer unless you disable 2 or 3 layers of it. And then you get a nice solid black for sure. Because at 0.04 millimeter layers, you know, black is not 100% black, even if it's super opaque, because you've got just effects of like missing little gaps in your print surface and things like that if you only do 1 layer. So you probably want 2 or 3 layers most of the time. So, and it doesn't have to be just black. It can be any color that you are thinking, I just want to make sure this is a little thicker. You can also do it just to thicken up a print. If you're like, I want this area to really poke out, you could disable some layers to make it poke out. But that is disabling layers. So, and then I don't know if I explained this well, but the reason that this gray needed to be right on top of the armor is because I needed to get this smooth blend, and I wanted it to be all continuous in terms of no edges, like these edges here. I wanted to avoid those edges, and by making it blend up from here, I get a nice continuous surface where you don't see any edges that are really distracting in the final product. Now, the edges may not be as bad as they look. If I go to render lit, the edges are going to be a little bit less. That's a weird render lit effect. They're going to be less intense, but oh, I'm on that side. There we go. That's why. Okay. This one doesn't change that much. Now, if I had used the champagne, which is an option here, I could use the champagne filament, Polymaker champagne, for the armor here. In render lit, assuming that my edit is correct, yeah, it's a silk. In render lit, it's going to look shiny. It's going to have a sheen to it on the champagne because it's a silk filament. So, okay. Hey, Adam, welcome. All right, so I did get some images from people. 2 of them were JPEGs. I will say that they seemed like reasonably high quality JPEGs. But I will always upscale JPEGs to get rid of compression artifacts because HueForge is super sensitive to compression artifacts. There's now a reset button. You can reset all your sliders back to defaults without resetting everything. And the user for this one specifically noted that, let me see, I want to read this. Separating the skin from the golden chain cleanly is something that they struggled with. And I can sort of see that. So again, I'm going to look at this in continuums. I think this one actually is a fairly straightforward continuum. The green is going to be a little bit of trouble. And the yellow, the gold of the chain, I think we're going to have to kind of blend on top of the white, I think, that we use for the skin. So let's hop over here to this side. I'm using C-Lab 2 most of the time now. C-Lab's still good. C-Lab 2 is a little bit more color accurate, so when you really have a lot of colors to deal with, it's a good option. I'm gonna grab. So dark shades of colors can be very are harder to match. So I'm going to grab a dark red here, and use that red, and then we'll bring in probably just the lipstick red to make the rest of our red up. There we go. Still seem to have an issue with it not always registering sliders when I bring them on there. So that'll be a bug, one of the bugs I'm trying to fix before I release. Bring a yellow in here to get that kind of orangey shade here. Got some oranges. I will say that the skin is pretty orange in this case. So probably that's too much yellow. Or I need a little more red. All right. It's not perfect, but we've matched most of the skin. I will say we don't have this color matched down here, so I'm going to make my black. There you go. I'm going to make my black the same color as the hat exactly so that I get a little bit more of this black matching across. Yeah, so Main TV asks, how do you get this version of HueForge? It is coming. I really think it's coming in within 2 weeks as a beta. Betas go to commercial owners, and then within 2 to 4 weeks from that, I'm hoping it's closer to 2 than 4. It'll go to everybody. Once it goes out of beta, everyone gets it. But during beta period, only commercial users get that. Okay, so then from here, this is where I would then go and try to separate out my gold chain at this point. I'd say I want the gold now here. And I might need to grab an orange as well to get that chain. That brown is matching, so that is tricky to get this to match just the chain because it's matching the body too. So I probably need to bring in more actual skin tone here. Let's get some shades of skin tone in here. There we go. That separated some of it. That really light? Yeah, let's get that really light tone in here. And then this is going to be up here. Yeah, I see where the problem is here. This is a tricky situation. So the issue here is that there's a ton of shades in the skin tone. A lot of shades in the skin tone. And let's go here. And they're basically a straight overlap pretty much for the chain. You can get a little bit of the chain out separately, but yeah, it matches the skin tone quite a bit. So that is a very tricky situation there. Oh, I switched back to the webcam. Okay. I wish it told me that. Apparently it doesn't want to switch back to that one. There we go. Sorry, I didn't even realize I did that. Thank you. So, all right. This is what I've been working on. Apologies for that. Still not very good at live streaming. Bring a pink in here. So this is actually a very, very tricky image this person has as well for the same reasons. We've got all these overlapping colors that are very similar to each other. In fact, maybe I'm wondering if I really need to treat skin as if it's entirely different from the red. Normally I base skin around red. But I think the red maybe needs to be kind of on its own. And then come into the skin tone here. We could potentially invert this. There, we could invert that. Uh, like that, and get our skin tone more separated out. But then it's still hard to get the chain to show up as the chain, right? It's still... And then the green here, this is just a matter of getting a green with a white on top of it at some point. Probably need more height here. So I'll change the blend depth from 2 to 3, just give myself plenty of room. And then you can see the green and white comes up here. Probably want to increase this here quite a bit and make the white down lower, yeah. All right, so that's kind of where I go with this, but it's very difficult. Color mapping and color sampling. I mean, you can sample any color you want. I don't know what you mean by color mapping, Brandon. So, wish HueForge had color mapping and color sampling more in line with the ChromaPaint from Litho Desktop Maker. I love the program, though. You can sample any color. I don't know what exactly you're requesting that's different. Now, obviously, it does. So what it does is a perceptual model of color, and then applies it to the image. And it does it with a bunch of Python that's in there. Very smart guy doing pretty cool stuff, but you don't really have much control. Like it's the way that the model looks or not. I mean, that you can just shift everything a ton. Those are pretty much your options. So, let's see here. There. Okay. Now what I did add that I haven't used here is the blend assistant. So the blend assistant allows you. Let me move it up. Move it up a toolbar. Blend assistant allows you to say, I want to start with a color, and you can start with a color off your bar. You could say, I want to start with this. Like, let's say you wanted to get this green from a yellow. So maybe you'd say, I want to start with a yellow, and can I get to a green? So you can drop the yellow here, and then you can say, I want to get to this green here. And then it'll give you the shades in between and also a color you can use to match. Okay, that's a bug I gotta fix. The blend assistant can't be at the bottom right now. It should be able to go either way, but right now it's not properly adjusting. So we'll bring it up here. So then it'll give you a list of your filaments that match these colors in here. We could say, oh, we're gonna put an opal green here, and work from there. So you have some options in terms of getting a little bit more information about how the colors are going to blend. But I will say that this is a difficult image that I was given. That's why people give them to me, because they're hard. I think it would have been very hard if I'd done the original JPEG. Let me pull the original JPEG in. It looks about the same. So the JPEG compression on this one's not too bad. But I think that, I mean, this is one thing I often do, and I tell people about this is I will work on an image and then I will say, I'm not super happy. I'm going to come back to it later. We'll check it out later, and then I'll take another look at it in the future when I've had more time to consider it. I think this is one where you probably, going this way and then actually false coloring this chain, color shifting this chain to a completely different color space would probably make life a lot easier on this one, because again, yes, the colors override. So, all right, that's the second one. Not perfect, not totally happy with it, but This is where we're going to be for now, I think. I think this is better without even going for the chain. We can get a better look with the green and everything coming off the white. All right. Then I have one more. Actually, I have two more, but this is another one. This one actually looked like a very good JPEG, but I still upsampled it. Okay, this is an example of trying to get all the colors in the world. There's definitely a subsection of the population that wants every color in their HueForges. And that's a valid desire, but it's always going to come up against the limitations of a layer-based medium. Obviously, layer-based medium is a something that I have picked as a constraint that isn't necessarily a constraint to a 3D printer, but it's a constraint I'm working with right now. And so this one is one where I'm going to look at it and say, well, the eyes are inset. This is kind of background. So I'm going to want to finish with this pink to yellow, I think. Actually, there's this green to yellow here that then would nicely continue into this yellow here and then into the darker pink. So I think that's what I'll end up doing. I'll end up putting a white in the middle, and then we'll get a red. And reds normally blend fairly well, so I'll put a red here. But we need a yellow as well, so we'll grab a yellow. And then we'll have our kind of our top color blend is pretty straightforward. We can flatten it and do some things to make, we don't have this pink here, so we could put a pink in the middle here, potentially. Or above, we could potentially just maybe put the white up top here and get our pink section. I think we're better off with a actual pink. Grab a couple of these colors, make the nose. Nose doesn't really like. It really wants to be yellow. Interesting. I don't like how that turned out, so we're going to leave that out for now. We'll just go into this yellow-orange. And then we need to we want to blend green into yellow with just a little bit of white. Like, we're not actually going fully saturated white here. So we'll just blend a green from the bottom. Opal green's a good option. There, now the eyes have this green blending into yellow. We may need a yellow down here too, because it's green into yellow and then into white. And then we want our purple and dark blue. So we'll grab a dark blue or dark purple here into a lighter purple. And maybe some blue in the middle there, maybe the Polymaker Azure in there. The question is whether it goes on top or underneath. I think it goes on top. And then it's just a matter of balancing the colors and the you can send me another image, Sean. Could I make the chain? Oh, in the previous image, yes, you could have made the chain blue. That certainly could have worked. Let's grab the actual black color here so we have more of a black. Go to C-Lab 2 so we get a little bit better color matching. Yeah, that's pretty good. There's a little magenta here that I don't have, so maybe we would grab a magenta. Oh, the nose likes to match that magenta, so maybe we could make that work. Or maybe we put the magenta under the blue here. So This is an interesting question. How do we get to this color? Right, this color is a red. This color is an orange. So we kind of need maybe we grab this red and put it here. And then we also want a darker red. We're going to want a darker red up here, I think. There we go. But yeah, we have all these issues along this line here. So what are these grabbing to? Um, kind of restricted here. Let's see here. That black is down here. Not sure what this is matching. Oh, that's just the edges. Okay. So we're just seeing the edges where we go from black to that red to the purple. So what this is saying is I could move this black up here, and that could clean up a lot of it. And that's one of those things where you have to make a choice where you want your black and where you don't, where you want those kind of colors. So maybe it's more makes more sense to blend. The problem with blending purple up here, which does make some sense because it's blending onto red, is that it's just those are more baseline colors for this image. But anyway, I think with the number of colors, you're always going to have somewhere that's discontinuous on this image. It's pretty much impossible to make this image actually continuous in color. So I'm pretty happy with this. It's just a matter of choosing where you want your blacks, etc. All right. Let's go look. Could we do something here? We could potentially invert some things. We could kind of look here what else we could do. This is one where being able to move these sliders around and say, okay, well, I want to take these sliders and cut them out, and I want to move them. I'm going to move them, down here. And try pasting them down here and see what things look like is a nice ability here. Be able to do that. That might actually be better. I was thinking that that should be the background, but this actually looks somewhat better to me. With it, yeah, I think that's better. With this purple and black in the middle here, I think that's a better choice. That gives us a better, more continuous image. So that's one where being able to pop these around becomes a big benefit. All right, let me pause for a few minutes and let's ask some questions. Anyone? No, they don't have it when it comes out. Yes, anyone above personal tier has access to the beta when it comes out. And again, that beta period is hopefully only going to be a couple weeks. So you just, if you have personal use, you can just wait and you'll get access to it. You don't need to go to commercial. I'm really not like the last beta for color matte. So yeah, but limited commercial for $36 more US will get you access to color match. But I don't plan on this one lasting super long. This one really shouldn't last that long. Why is this showing me? These are so high. Oh, these must be. Oh, these are black edges here. These are some of these edges are the wrong shade. Okay. These are gonna be hard to find. There's one. There. There we go. There. Got rid of those weird whisker things. All right. So let's see. But yes, anyone above personal tier will have access to beta on release. And then again, 2 to 4 weeks later, everyone should have access to the beta. Or not the beta, it'll be the full release at that point. Let me go through this one last one I got before I go grab my email. This one is a photograph, which is photographs are always fun because photographs are difficult. The problem with photographs is that they're not always great quality. Like this one's pretty low res. But also they often tend to have a lot of colors in them. And like trying to hit skin tone when you don't have all that many shades of skin tone can be trickier. So let's look at this one. I mean, kind of obvious thing to do here is to start with the grass. So we'll just put some grass down here. I think we'll just get some slightly brighter grass. There we go. So now we have some grass. And then we'll go probably straight into this yellow. Just because it's a nice continuum. You go straight into this yellow. It just blends, obviously. It's an obvious blend to make is to go into this yellow. Oh, though I should invert this. There. And then probably into the red from there. We'll start with this darker red. And we'll go to a lighter red. I don't even, it's all fairly similar shades, so. Now, here's the tricky part, skin tone, right? So the problem is we pretty much can either get the red to be kind of the correct shade, or we can get the skin tone to kind of be correct, and I'm not sure we can get all of it. Notice we haven't done the asphalt at all. Probably best if we did that. So let's grab our gray. Let's put a white down here at the bottom. And then we'll grab our a gray here to kind of try to hit the ground. Let's see here. There. So now we got our gray at the bottom. You have a patch of green here, a patch of yellow here. And then, yeah, so the skin tones are going to be hard to land here. So let's look at, all right, let's look at a couple things. Let's look at how we can hit skin tone from this red. So we'll bring the blend assistant up. We'll grab this red, put it here, and then we'll grab our skin tone and put it here, and we can see it pretty much just says, you know, blend it to white. So yeah, actually that doesn't look too bad. It gets pretty close. Let's look at this. Just saying, put the Sakura pink in here. Let's see here. Hey Ian, welcome. Getting some hard ones today. Let's see here. All right, so here's the situation where her skin is actually matching to the base, the ground. We don't really want that. There, I made it not match with the ground by grabbing the actual color of her skin here and making it my white at the top. But I will say, see, the issue here is there's just so many colors in this image. We get a lot of it, though. It's not perfect. We get a lot of it. His face is much more saturated in color than her face is, so it becomes more difficult to make her face his face match. And then they both are too bright. They both are too dark. They have way too much color in them. I'm switching TDs, by the way. I'm not mentioning this, but I'm hitting T and adjusting the TD of these colors so that I can blend them, and or they match kind of colors I already have that I know exist. All right, I think this is probably going to be about as good as I can get this image without spending a lot of time on it or recoloring them. Also, potentially updating the whole image. Let's see here. I might try to get those headlights in there. Yeah, I can get the headlights better, and her shirt's a little better now. So this is kind of how I'd go about this. This is a very difficult image. There's no denying that this is going to be a very tricky image to get solid. I mean, honestly, anytime you put people at a distance in an image, it becomes really hard because there's only so much nozzle. There's only so much nozzle to use to get their skin, like to get their individual features and skin. That I like, so I brought this in here. That brings his shadows from his face a little bit better so that they're not all at the bottom, but his sunglasses are going to be at the bottom. It's pretty much impossible to bring his sunglasses here without messing up everything else. See, everything else got messed up when I did that. I can bring his sunglasses up into his face, but if I do that, then the shadows of the car and everything get disrupted because it's all picking the same thing. Anyhow, this is how I would go about this one, but again, this is a difficult one. No lie. Um, yeah, I mean that's what color match does. If it's black, white, and red, that's easy, right? It's just that there's so many colors. It's easy when there's 3 or 4 colors. This is matching with the image, but it does a perceptual color model, which is a different way of matching than I do. But if you have a simple image with just a few colors, it's pretty straightforward to do it in HueForge with color match. But when you have a ton of different shades of colors, it becomes much trickier. But he does some cool stuff. Don't get me wrong. Um, okay, let me pull up the one that was just emailed to me. Oh, yeah, okay. So this one is a flower. And it has all the colors. It literally has like every color. So here what we'd want to do is work on blending. And I think this is one of those cases where you might say, all right, I have, red. If you were to take this red, oops, drag it in here, and then you'd say I want to hit this yellow and drag it in here, it's going to give you the colors in between and what color you want. So we could say, let's start with a red that matches. Let's do the lipstick red. It's like dead on. This is one actually where I'd probably want the black in the middle just because, or near the top, because it's going to look better, I think, with the black up there. And then it's going to say grab this yellow. Let's use the Polylight Yellow V2. That's going to give me a lot of shades. Let's use the Overture. Fewer shades. So now I get actually a lot of these filled in, right? I get the center is pretty close. I mean, it's not exactly the same shade, but pretty close. So then I'm going to say, well, I have this shade. Let's grab this shade here. And then I want to go to this shade here. And it's going to give me some colors to pick. And what color do I have here? It's good green or a bluish green. Let's just use this bluish green. Okay. And then from here, I want to go to blue. So we're going to grab, you can also do, by the way, a color picker from here. And then you'd say, I want to go to, like, say this blue. It's going to say grab this color. Deep sea blue, king room blue. I need to put the TDs here because I think those are, let's do the bamboo basic blue. This is not meaningful. Okay, so the issue here is that I needed to go through this color. So let's actually go through this color first. Yeah, it's going to want a light blue here. Okay, and then we need to go to purple. So we're going to go back to our red, probably. Oh, but here. Nope, that's too much. The purple's too weak. We'll just grab a purple and a pink, put them in here. And then we want a white on top here so the eyes have their shine. There we go. So this gives you your whole color circle. But now, and I use real colors for the most part. Now, you could choose that you don't want the black on top, but I still argue that the black on top is probably the right choice. But if you wanted the black on the bottom, we could do that. We could move the black to the bottom pretty easily. Just grab the black here, Control X it out. We'll move this up one, and then we can paste insert at the bottom. And then just make sure that our red gets fully saturated. There. Now they're at the bottom. You could also put it in the middle. You'd have to do some adjustment, but you can put it in the middle. And this is mostly real filaments, so we just need a purple that's similar. That's not quite the same. Nope, that's not the same at all. Let's see here. XL'd purple, that's pretty close. And then a pink. Or maybe a white, potentially, if you don't want to get another color involved. Um, let's try Polylite Pink and see where we are. No, that's not. Maybe this is more of a magenta? Or maybe we try a white. Let's just put white on top of purple and see how that goes. No, that's just too purple. Neon pink looks like maybe the right choice. Give ourselves some more. What color does this match to? We should do that. I mean, the Polylite magenta, but that's like way, way, way too high TD. We're going to need a million layers to make that work. I like that. It's not exactly the same, but I like that. All right. So there we go. That is your image. Obviously, these are pretty much flat colors each, but we did it with 9 unique filaments. So ideally, you don't have 9 unique filaments in here. Let's see. Black and white. Doesn't really matter which ones those are. Basic blue, purple, red. Maybe we could put red on top here and see. I mean, maybe I would do that and like accept that you don't have a pink because it still looks like it's correct as a color wheel if we do it that way. So that red is now there. But yeah. Trying to think what else. Maybe the other option might be to put the red there, but then grab this here to get a pink. Yeah, you could do that too and get our pink kind of that way. And now we're down to 8 colors, which I think is a good middle of the road. Now the blending tool is supposed to be aware of what's around it. I need to fix it. It is supposed to be aware of what's around it and pop this up top, pop the menus up above if it needs to, but it's not doing that. So I will fix that before release and or during the beta if there's more issues. But there you go. That's how you get all those colors. Now because they aren't like mixed together, it's an easier thing to do. If they were all mixed together, this would be much harder. Now you might say, oh, that yellow's a little bit too bright, so we can make it a little paler. But I kind of liked it the way it was. And then yeah, you can move these around and adjust them, but for this one, they're gonna have to be pretty much dead on. All right. Any questions? Any comments? Things you want to cover? I mean, there definitely are images that are better and worse for HueForge. This one's doable simply because it is all flat colors in each section. But if these were supposed to be like blended together, it could be pretty difficult. But yeah, the nice thing about the color, the blend assistant is going to help you with this because color blending in for pigments is all CMYK, and CMYK space is not at all intuitive to humans. It's a very non-intuitive color space for us humans. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter where you put the black really, as long as you have enough space for it. Um, put it back on top. Hello, wake up. Oh, right. I gotta move. Oh, okay. Actually, let me show you that. So here we have the option here. We can synchronize these. So you can actually say, I want to grab this, cut it. It's going to cut it from both, and then you can paste it to both. So now they stay synchronized in terms of cutting and pasting with the lock. It doesn't synchronize moving sliders with control or whatever, but it does. Again, it could also be in the middle. The only thing if you put them in the middle, you're going to need to make sure that like, your blue's not too pale or things like that. I mean, maybe you could do red, yellow, green, and then instead of this light blue, maybe we could get away with that. Let's try that. X, and then we'll put it here. And then maybe we don't even need the light blue. Now the problem here is that this blue isn't going to blend enough. You're not going to get enough shades. So you still need this light blue in here. And then that's right in the middle. So some are above and some are below. That's an option. I would probably also, because there's not really blending here, so I would probably pick, this is like a 6 TD white. I'd probably go for a lower TD white, like something really low, like a cold white. Um, yeah, the cold white's going to get this done really fast. And this is another case where you might want to disable here and then disable here and here to get really nice and white, and then you don't have that many layers in there. Yeah, this is going to be hard to print with just one AMS. We don't reuse color. We reuse the red. We reuse the white. That's pretty much all. Well, this is an issue where this cold white's not going to work great for that pink. Because it's gonna brick wall the red. Um, so that is a negative about the cold white there. You really need that to be able to blend that pink. To make it, so then that would make it 9 colors again. These are 2 different whites, so you're back up to 9 colors. But if you're not reusing, it's actually easier. So when you don't reuse a filament, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you're not going to use them again, so you can immediately replace yellow and green with white and blue, and then when the black's done, you can replace that with dark blue, and then you can replace the red's already in there, then you replace with a different white. Or you use the same white and just have more layers. You can certainly use the same white and have more layers, or have it at the top. I will say the darker the color that's below the black, the less you need more layers, but 2 to 3 layers at 0.04. This one could probably work at 0.08 as well, except for maybe the pink at the end. Okay. Any questions? Things I didn't go over you want me to go over? Questions that got brought up while I was doing this? Yeah, so a 4-color single AMS will definitely be trickier, Sean. I wish I could reduce it down more, but can only be so reduced, really. For when you want the entire rainbow. If you didn't want the entire rainbow, we could have a conversation, but you want the entire rainbow, so you need a certain number of colors. One interesting thing, though, is if you have this green here and you decided you wanted this gray, oh, you can't control click that. You wanted this gray. I don't know how many people know this, but you're ending up with a red or a purple on the other side in CMYK color space. Green to gray goes through a reddish purple. Depends on how green and how gray. Hey AJ, welcome. Glad you could make it. I have, let's see, this week I really was just bug fixing this week. I had some issues with the renderer that I fixed. I've had some issues with, like, it's just all bug fixes this week. I had some issues with my store. I don't know if you guys heard, but everyone in the EU now gets a Polymaker coupon from 3D Jake if they buy the personal use license. That's been a long time coming. I know people have asked for it for a long time. Finally, they were able to support that. The issue has been they just have not been able to support that with their ability to distribute. So they were able to get 3D Jake to hop on that bandwagon. So sorry for those of you who already bought. Thank you very much. But I can't give you a coupon retroactively, but at least it's available now going forward. All right. Oops. All right, so any questions? Sorry about the weird angled camera view. I tried fixing that last week and it didn't work. Let me talk a couple of filament things. The new maroon red bamboo, I haven't actually used it in a print yet, but it's a beautiful color. It's like a 1.5 TD, so you're not going to get a lot of blending out of it, but it's a darker, winey red. I really like it. I also really like their indigo purple. It's in the same range, like 1.2, 1.4. It's a really deep saturated purple. Okay, question. I started using the software, bought it a while ago. It says swap at 0.96, but my Bamboo Studio won't go to that. Okay, there are a couple of reasons that can happen. And you're going to have to answer the question of which one it is that's the reason that's your cause. First, did you rescale it in the slicer? Did you change the size of the HueForge file in the slicer? Did you drop it 50% or 75% and not do it just XY but allow the Z to be scaled? If you did that, then it is going to do that because you have changed the number of Z layers. Second, how far off is it? I kind of need to know how. It says to swap at 0.96, but what layer is it? What is it stopping at? Or is it that 0.96 is not an available layer, but it goes past 0.96? So I need a few answers to questions for this. But what is the layer height in HueForge? Is the layer height in HueForge 0.08? Or is the layer height in HueForge 0.12? And what is your base layer versus the HueForge base layer? So if your first layer is 0.2, but HueForge defaults to 0.16, then it's going to be then it's 0.2, then you won't have a swap at 0.96. So you need to make sure that you match the layer height and the base layer. In your version, hold on, I can bring this up. In your version, they're going to be in the model geometry, or sorry, general options and operations, which by default is at the top. I've moved it. So layer height and base layer are here. If your layer height's 0.08, which is the default, and your base layer is 0.16, which is the default, but you're at 0.12 and 0.2, then they're not going to line up. Okay. Yeah, so the describe text will tell you what to set. It will say print at 100% infill with a layer height of 0.08 and a base layer of 0.16. While we're here, well, I've got you here. Let me walk through one thing that a lot of people who are new especially don't know how to do, and it's kind of hidden in Bamboo Studio. I'll bring a Bamboo Studio window in over here. All right, so if you are running, so like I have my HueForge profile here. If you click this edit button and come to the extruder, then you can change your layer height minimum, because by default it says you can't go past 0.08. Can't go lower than 0.08, but these printers will print at 0.04. You just need to tell it here. So it's whatever your printer is, you click this edit button, extruder, and then you edit this. This is also available in Prusa Slicer and Orca Slicer for other printers. There's always an extruder setting with a minimum layer height, and a 0.4 nozzle can definitely go down to 0.04. We also do slow down prints when we do that, but you can change this, and then when you want to get to 0.04, which will give you greater, smaller gradients and better blending, then you're good to go. Oh, that is something I wanted to talk about. Okay, so we looked at these images. Let me hit Control N, discard everything, reset everything. Let's look at an image that is terrible for HueForge. This image is pretty bad for HueForge. It works great. Anything that's pretty bad for HueForge will generally work still okay grayscale. But there's a couple of issues with this image for HueForge. The first being that the pink purple color scales are almost all low TD, so it's going to be hard to get smooth blending. But the bigger part is these very shallow gradients are extremely hard without very high TD colors to get to blend, because to not be all stair steppy. So let's look at this. If I bring in, let's just go with this. So this is kind of effectively a luminance version, fairly close to luminance. So let's just assume it's luminance and bring in some of these colors. So let's bring in a purple. Here, like a purple. So like I only can go here to here, right? I can't. So let's go. Let's get this blue here. Now I have some higher TD colors, but I'm just going with like what most people have, like this matte blue. Like I only have choices that are like big steps because let's find a pink. Now pinks tend to be a little bit higher TD. Um, but see here in the sky especially, the sky is super chunky, right? I can dial it back and make it, but you're still getting all these layer steps, and that's because really smooth gradients take a long time to change layers, and then you get these layer steps and these banding all through your image. This actually doesn't look awful as it is, but um and I have some options here, like I could use this 14 TD magenta here. I would probably want to increase the TD of this gray to get more blending and this gray to get more blending, to give myself more room to blend. But and like this white. So you can make it work, but it takes a lot of effort, and you're still going to get these steps. And this is just an issue of so Ajax says they'll print down to 0.02. This is true for what he prints in, which is ABS. I have yet to get a PLA or PETG print that doesn't smear like crazy when you try to print at that layer height with a 0.04 or with a 0.4 nozzle. You do certainly print to 0.2 with a 0.2 nozzle, and it's possible that the profile can be tuned and adjusted to work at a 0.02, but I haven't done it yet. The only successful 0.02 prints I've seen that don't have a lot of post processing to clean them up are the ones made in ABS. Um, what you want everything? Well, do you just want my font to be bigger? He asked if I could change the monitor resolution in the next stream. Can't really recognize much. Is it that you can't understand what buttons I'm pressing? Okay, so bigger font helps. All right. Oh, it looks like I do need to adjust these for bigger font too, so that's a good thing to test. Um, I like my giant resolution. It makes it easier to use HueForge. But yeah, okay, larger font. I'll take that as a note. A larger font in the future, and it'll help me fix some of these font issues. Again, this is the kind of stuff that I expect to fix um in the beta. Um, so anyway, so yeah, so I'm able to do this because I have some very high TD filaments in my library, but without those very high TD filaments, this would be nearly impossible because you'd have these big, giant, chunky transitions, and it would be very, very difficult to get. And I'm not even trying to get this kind of orangey, peachy color in here. Not even like that's just too much. Like that's just not going to happen. So anyhow, really, really soft gradients, and especially images with really soft gradients that blend into each other, are always going to make chunky issues. So you're better off if you're looking to how to prompt or how to find images that are better for HueForge to get started. High contrast kind of stuff is going to be a lot easier for you to deal with. Any kind of high contrast images, things like that, they're going to be a lot easier to get working. I could just do this in combo. Yeah. Okay. Hey, fat boy. Haven't seen you in a while. Welcome. Okay, so that is what I had prepared. I'm willing to talk about more stuff if other people have things they want to talk about or ask questions on. Um, Glad everyone came. I appreciate you all coming. I'm going to give some time for chat to ask more questions because there's been some good ones. Um, And let's see. Things I haven't mentioned that I've fixed or dealt with is the reset view now works properly all the time. At least I think all the time. Um, R or reset view. Sometimes on like a current version, if you especially have a really wide image, like that's much wider than it is long. Oh, here's another example of an image that's probably not going to work super well in HueForge because of all the really strong gradients. It's going to be hard to get those gradients to blend. We can try if you guys want, but this is I know is going to be a very tricky image. Come up through green. We can give it a try here. Actually, pretty good about everything in the background here. I want an orange, I think. I don't use orange that often. That's a pro tip. Don't use orange unless you need it. Here, I don't think I want a red, at least not in the bottom part, so I'm going to use a little orange to get that blend there. But now we've got this issue where the cat is actually kind of this gray color with some of these other colors mixed in. And then it's going to start conflicting with the background. It's actually better than I thought it was going to be totally honest. Like, this is a much better rendition of this cat than I expected I was going to have. This brown here is going to be, this reddish brown is going to throw all kinds of stuff off, though. Like, because that really belongs down here with the orange, but then the cat's a mess. So you got to kind of leave it up here. This is way, way better than I expected it to be. I don't normally use orange just because I use red and yellow all the time, and they make orange really well. So it's not that I don't like orange, it's that I just don't almost never need orange because red and yellow make orange. That's pretty much why. And most of the time you don't need specifically the orange. Like the orange is not specifically needed, and so I don't use it. Just to cut down on colors and everything, it's all kind of a combination of things. Right, yeah, yeah. Yellows are normally high TD, so if there's like you need one high TD color, you're going to get a high TD color if you go with yellow. Yellows are almost always high TD. Now here I'm tweaking this a little bit by grabbing individual colors to make the blending better. This is actually going better than I thought it was going to go, to be quite honest. I think if I don't know if that's benefiting me at all. Maybe a little bit, but all right, let's see if I can actually color this. Now here's a situation here, like right here, this part of the body here, right? You've got this grass here and it's overlaying the body, but it can't do both. So you're going to get grass just totally on top. Like the cat is completely behind the grass. The grass is uh, blocking it entirely. And you're not really going to be able to blend the colors together. I mean, I could try putting a blue or a gray in here, but then it blends, but then we'd have to move the cat entirely down here, which we could do. We could move the cat down here entirely. Put the orange up here. Grab the white. Maybe put the brown underneath the orange. Still need a white up here. But then we lose a lot of the this the distinguishing marks on the cat, the edge of the cat. That's actually gets us some of our color. Let's see, can we grab? So I think this color needs to be down here with the gray though. So I mean, this is an option. It kind of marries the green up with the cat here a little bit better. Um, But then the cat is kind of oddly positioned. Here we probably want a lower TD white, so we'll just bring in the 4 TD white here to get that fringe. So that's another option, but I don't think it's quite as good because we lose a lot of this. This greenish here goes away. That was blending with yellow. We lose that. So anyway, we'll just undo all that. Okay, that was me unifying them, so we'll go undo that. There we go. Okay. Oh wait, no, it's okay. Then we need more yellow though. We can increase the blending depth here to 3. Give ourselves more room. Yeah, get our fringe. I just wanted our fringe, our colorful fringe here. We really want this white to bring the kitten out and make the kitten its own thing. Okay. In any case, we would then come over to this side, and this is a lot of stuff. This is just all black here. And then we have our orange. I'm going to bring these over one at a time because that gives me more control. And a lot of these are filament colors. So I could just duplicate the whole thing. Actually, it's almost entirely filament colors. So let's just duplicate the whole thing. And then we really just need to fill these in. And I think we have pretty obvious candidates here. We'll just use our chrominal. Shadow gray. The brown. Gives us a really, really nice fur effect. We can kind of choose how gray or how brown it is. And then this color, oops, find that filament. We could try the brown again. I think actually, this 3D Max brown is pretty good. Or we could try like the Bamboo Basic is a very red brown, so that I think that's kind of perfect here. Yeah, that's kind of really good here. It might not be dark enough though. What about the cocoa? It's really low TD though. With the orange leading into it, maybe? I always like to reuse filaments where I can. Like, use them more than once because then you can get, I'm not really getting the blend I want there. But, there you go. So you can do this one to some extent, but it is tricky. It's never going to look quite as good, I think, as you want it to look. Because there's just too many unique shades in here. And they're all too closely related to each other in terms of space. They're too closely tied in space to each other. All right. Yes, this astigmatic eye, this layout is in the new upcoming update. This is not the default layout. This is, I've rearranged the slider bar or the toolbars to the way I like them, or mostly the way I like them. I think I normally have these over here. But yes, this is the new, and probably this one here. This is the new general layout. As I said, the default layout has them stacked because it's 1366 by 768. It's very small. So it has to stack them so all the tools are visible. And you can come in the windows and turn off bars you don't care about. So like color shifting I don't do very often. So I believe that's... I should know what that is. Image tools? Yeah, that's image tools. I'll change that as well. But you can turn them on and off, and then again, like I showed at the very beginning, if you want, you can drag them to the sides, the bottom. You can leave it in the middle and use it. You can do what you want. And then you can collapse some. Like I don't really think most people use depth mode, so I can bring it over so the depth mode stays hidden and everything else is visible. I do wish they pushed to the right better. They don't push to the right, but and then again you can run this renderlet and show what it's going to look like in lighting. This one does not look so great with lighting, so I think we would have some issues here. I think this one looks worse in lighting than without it, which normally they look better in lighting. So if I bring up another model, like this one looks a little bit better. Not significantly different, but it does look a little bit better, I think, lit. So lighting is render lighting and glow lighting and secondary effects, filament effects are all kind of beta. They're experimental features, even in the beta. The beta should only be for a couple weeks, hopefully. I do support glow in the dark now. This is something I showed last week, but I'll show it real quickly. Like if I made this glow in the dark and clicked on glow, you'd see that these are the parts that are going to glow and roughly how brightly they're going to glow. And you can also do fluorescence and color shifting. Well, but you can't combine. They're all using the same color bar, the same color space. So if you try to combine them, they cut each other off. So if I tried to make fluorescent up here, you see it just immediately cuts back to 0 and then to fluorescent, which is probably not totally accurate. Oh, but to see fluorescent, you go and change the light to UV. Turn off glow. Now you can see where the fluorescence is. But yeah, again, you can't really combine fluorescent. So if I made this a regular white again, then the fluorescence effect is going to be a bit different because it's being and here's with the render lit with the fluorescence. So oh, and also, so these are, I am going to talk just a couple of filaments or a couple of things that I've changed. Okay, filaments, you can now add secondary effects, but you can also add tags to them. Let's see, like this is high TD white. And then save and close. And then if I look for like TD, anything that has TD in the name, or in the name, or so those are GITD. So if I said high TD, then the Paramount White's going to show up. And then, but these also can matter. So if I were to tell it that the high TD white, well, I just had it. If I were to tell it, this is not true, but if I were to tell it that it's a silk, then if I light it and I've used it, let's bring it here, then it's going to have shine like a silk. If it has silk in the name, it's already going to do that. It's going to be hard to see on this image. Here. So like this one has starlight. Why am I not seeing? It's lit. It's just not shining right now. Okay, I got to figure out what's going on there. I made some changes in the rendering, so I may have turned something off accidentally. I appear to have turned off some of the lighting effects accidentally, so I'll fix that. But it will show the sheen, and then it will also show, this one will show color shift. If it's working right, which it's not right now. I don't know what happened. But things like starlight, silk, pearl, metallic will all automatically pick up a sheen. And yes, TD1 will update to get the glow factor for HueForge. I'm seeing some weird graphics artifacts here, so I think there's something. I just made some shader changes today. There is a little sheen, but it's nowhere near as much as it should be. Or silk, which is what or starlight tags as silk. And with a color shift. I got to figure out what's going on there, but it was in there before. Mattes will show up as less shiny, and then maybe it's just not enough showing. No, it's not. It's not really shining the way it's supposed to. Mattes will show up as being less shiny and than regular, so it'll be. And then anywhere where there's a lot of change in color, a lot of change in the color, it'll show up as less shiny as well. And then the light is active when you're doing this. So, but yeah, this is not doing it exactly right. And that is Neptune, so it should be doing it. If I pulled an actual silk, well, Polylight Champagne is a silk. Might show better, but yeah, it's still not. Okay, I gotta figure out what I did there. I broke something. Should be much shinier. All right. I think I am going to wrap up, but I'll give another 5 minutes for questions, and then I will wrap up, and I will see you guys. Discord in 2 weeks for EU office hours. Discord in 1 week for US office hours, and then 2 weeks from then, back on YouTube. All right. I don't know what the lag is on this right now. It seems to be a little bit. Gonna give it another minute. Any last minute questions, and then hop off. Figure out what I did to the rendering, because that should be much shinier than it is. Much shinier than it is. It almost seems like the normals aren't being calculated, which actually, now that I think about it, that is something I worked on. So possibly it's the normals aren't being calculated, and that would affect this. All right, guys. Hold on. Switch back so I can. I will. Thank you for coming. Thank you all for coming out and watching and hanging out with me. And I will continue working on this. And again, Linux build's working, Mac build's working, Windows build's working. So there's some bugs on each one of them that need to be taken care of. But other than that, just really sorting out bugs and then getting going. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.